Hello, I'm Dr. David Levine, and today's date is April 29th, 2023. I'm in Chicago at the American Association of Plastic Surgeons meeting where I'm doing interviews for the ICON project. The purpose of the ICON project is to preserve in audiovisual format icons of our society who are teachers, innovators, forward thinkers, and great surgeons who advance our specialty. I hope you enjoy this. Hello, I'm Dr. David Levine. Welcome back. I'm here to interview Dr. Susan MacKinnon as part of the ICON project. Dr. MacKinnon is a past president of the American Association of Plastic Surgeons, is also the first female president of the American Association of Plastic Surgeons. Dr. MacKinnon, thank you.
Thank you, David. Great to be here.
Okay, first question is very easy. Just state your full name and date of birth.
Susan Elizabeth MacKinnon, January 31st, 1950.
Okay.
That was an easy question.
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Yeah. Only you would know. What were the names of your parents?
Well, Betty MacKinnon, she was Betty Jessup, and then Donald Lachlan MacKinnon.
Okay. And you were born in Canada?
All my family's from Canada.
Okay.
In 1991, my husband and I immigrated from Canada. Okay. No family whatsoever in the United States. So I was born in New Brunswick, in a little tiny town of 250 people. My dad was a civil engineer, and that meant working on a project, build a dam, build a mine, build a building. He built the Toronto airport and the art gallery in Toronto, but also opened up mines in Manitoba. So we were hopscotching across the country, but I was born in New Brunswick when he was doing a project up in the Gaspé.
Okay. And would you talk about your children, grandchildren a little bit, names and...
Well, I'll first talk about my husband, Alec Patterson.
Okay. My
best mentor and husband. Well, 51 years this June. And we have 4 kids, 4 adults. Lachlan is a chef in Boulder, Colorado, and has a wine business called Scarpetta, has a little pig logo. And he is married to Kristen, and they have our oldest granddaughter, Lydia, who's 15, and then Julian and Calvin, who are 8 and 6. And then Megan is our oldest daughter. She's married to Ganesh Kamath, and they have 3 kids. Kieran, who's 14. I shouldn't do these ages because it's going to take a long to go through 11 of them. But Kieran, and then Kieran's 14.
I'm
and then
impressed
Noah,
you remember all that.
And then Rowan, every year they get a different number, right? And,
yes.
And Rowan, who's 10. And Megan is a chief of the hand surgery division in the Department of Orthopedics and associate chair in the Department of Orthopedics at UNC, does hand surgery. And then Brendan is married to Jenny, and they have 2 girls, Amelia, who's 10, and then Isabel, who's 8. And Brendan is an orthopedic shoulder surgeon at the University of Iowa. And then Caitlin is married to Tommy, and Caitlin's vice president at Duke in hospital administration, and has Lily, who is also 10, and then Adrian and Nico just turned 4. He had his golden birthday April 4th. He's 4. And his brother Adrian is 8. The Tommy, Katie's husband, is just finishing his residency in psychiatry. I said, "Oh, you'll be able to diagnose me?" And he said, "Oh, Susan, I already have a long time ago." But we didn't go past that. And then Brendan's married to Jenny, who has an MPH and does research. And Megan's married to Ganesh, who's an orthopedic sports surgeon. And Lachlan's married to Kristen, who does bespoke upholstery in a little shop making fine upholstery.
Wow. First of all, it's interesting. You got a lot of medical people in the family, which I'm sure...
Not surprising, maybe.
Well, you know, I don't know. I think that that is a compliment to you. Because some people
Yeah.
would say, I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to do that, but you've got a lot. And I was going to hold the UNC thing against you because I went to Duke, but since
Then I
your
have a
daughter,
Duke.
yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
Yes,
So.
I saw that. I said, whoa, yeah. Yeah, we have both shades of blue. But, you know, when my daughter Megan decided to go into surgery, I did think, couldn't have been that bad if she wants to do exactly what her mom's doing.
No.
And then Lachlan is very famous. He's won all the James Beards Awards you can, except best restaurant in the whole country, which they have been on the short 5 list for the last number of years. And I said, it's better to be every year on that list. And he said, no, Mom, you want to win it. But he's written a book on Friuli, where their wine comes from in northern part of Italy. And in the back of it has this wonderful thing about his parents. And he said that they let him do whatever he wanted to do. I know they wanted me to go into academics, but I had no interest in that, is what he says in this thing. And they let me follow my own path. So that was also great too.
Well, when this interview's over, I want to get into where your son's restaurant is, because I'll be up in Boulder in a month.
Frasca Food and Wine in Boulder.
I'll write it down.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
And he also has some in Denver. He has several in Denver. So
Okay.
he's a busy guy.
All right. So, you talked about your husband, and so my next question was, how did you meet your husband? Did you mention that?
Well, I'd love to tell you, but remember, you can just turn a knob and I'll stop talking, because we've been married for so long. I have such great stories. But I met him, and it was in pre-med, and there were 8 women in my class, and the rest were guys. And Alec was from the year ahead. We're 12 of their finest from the year ahead in medical school. It hazed us. Have you heard of hazing?
Oh, of course.
Holy mackerel, I'd never heard of that. So he was one of they called them vigilantes, the vidges. And I thought that was insane. The whole thing was ridiculous and not serious. And some part of it I just thought was awful. And then I fell in love with him, and that was a different story.
Okay.
That was another year ago.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history, yeah.
And 11 grandchildren,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, see, I remembered that part. And plastic surgery, what inspired you?
To go into plastic surgery?
Yeah, and by the way, I've interviewed a number of people who've had engineering in their parental side of their family, so I wonder if that's a right brain thing that...
You know, my grandmother was an artist, and my dad was also an artist, besides a civil engineer, and did beautiful bronzes and paintings, and so lots of art, lots and lots of art in our family. But I wanted to be a historian, and my best teacher ever was Lou Bob in high school, and he said, don't be a historian. No one will listen to anything you say, and it's just so repetitive. And so I did something practical, like go to medical school. But when I was in medical school, and I was in pre-med at 19, there was a summer seminar, and there was a rectangular table, and Harry Botterill, who was the lead neurosurgeon in the war from Canada in Europe, he was giving a lecture on the effect of norepinephrine in spinal cord injuries. And I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I can remember to the day, and I'm 19, exactly where I'm sitting, where everybody else is sitting, and looking out this window in the garden there. And I thought it was fascinating. So in medical school, I loved neurology, everything, neuropath, neuroanatomy, neuroendocrine, neuroradiology, everything neuro. And I had a fellow, the fellow in neurology, Walter Van Ast, who had micro writing and was brilliant. I would follow him around like a puppy dog, and he taught me how to do neurology exams. And I thought it was just magical. Like, you do this detailed exam, and you can find out where the lesion is. And of course, this was I graduated in 75, so there wasn't CT until 1980, and there wasn't MRIs until farther after that. So it was all physical examination. And I wanted to be a neurologist. And I had Lachlan when I was a 4th year med student, June the 18th. And I was prepared to go back to, do my internship in medicine to go into neurology.
Okay.
But I asked if I could have a week off in August, because we have a camp up in northern Canada that my grandparents opened as a hunting and fishing lodge. We still have that camp. I've been there almost every summer of my life. And I wanted to take my baby up to show my family. And he said to me, Larry Wilson, Dean of Medicine, said, perhaps you need another job, another type of job. Being a mom is a great thing to do. Maybe that's what you should be doing. Think about it. So I thought about it. I thought, I don't want to work for him for 5 or 6 years. And I'd won the prize in surgery. It also, over the 4 years, stood first, not any in 1 year, but over the 4 years, first in my medical class. So I went to the chairman of neurosurgery, and Alan Cruis, who was in my class, was in surgery, and I was in medicine, and he wanted to do ophthalmology, and he didn't really want to do, he'd done a month of surgery and didn't like it, so he wanted to switch with me. So I switched into surgery, and I didn't go into that.
You know, it's amazing in our lives how one little thing. Now, this isn't about me, but I knew I wanted to be a plastic surgeon when I was 13.
Right.
And I didn't know really much about it, but my father was a physician. Long story short, when he went to, he was an ophthalmologist. I didn't want to do that. That's back in the old days when there were wards and the beds lined up. And when he told me about plastic surgery, I said, that's what I want to do. And he said, that's a great idea. And so everybody said, when you want to grow up? I'm going to be a plastic surgeon. But it's interesting how our lives follow a certain pattern and things that change everything that we've done. And Linda and I had talked about woman in plastic surgery and woman in medicine. You had 8 female members in your class. I forgot how many she had. Of course, those dynamics have changed radically, which is kind of why we have the Icon Project, so we can talk about what was, and we'll get into what you think will be. Your mentors in plastic surgery, or I think you've mentioned some, so that as you talked about your goals and what you want to do, but any specific mentors that you want to reiterate or just mention?
You know, my husband is a thoracic surgeon, and he is more famous by far than I am internationally. And he is definitely my biggest mentor.
Okay.
My father, when I was a teenager, it gave me this mantra, non carborundum illegitimus. Yeah. And I don't know why.
Don't let the bastards wear you down.
Right,
yeah.
Don't let the bastards get you down and grind you down. So, and I don't know what it was, but he gave me that. His mom was widowed. His father was a doctor. But he died of tuberculosis. He also went over to the wars, in the First World War, and then came back with tuberculosis. And he died when my dad and his brother were 6 and 8, and his mom looked after them. Her brother was Guju Taylor, who was a medical missionary and opened up the first leprosy colony in Taiwan. And then in 1911, when the wars were happening over there, was sent back. But he was there came back every 7 years to Canada. And then my dad's older brother, Hector, did become a doctor. So there's that healer in our genetics, but we were hopscotching all over the country, and I didn't meet those people. Even my uncle, I only met him a couple of times. So I didn't have a physician in my family, but so I went into surgery, and I loved it. The only problem was I got pregnant again with Megan, and I was noticing that surgery was making me nauseated, but it was just when I was pregnant and it was all hot and whatever. But I loved surgery. And talking about mentors, the 3 most dynamic, best surgeons, most charismatic were pediatric microsurgeons at Queen's University, where I was in medical school and did my general surgery. And I loved pediatric general surgery. It was hard, it was tiny, it was last forever, and it was because they were great. You know, my daughter Megan she's Megan Patterson after my husband. She dropped me, that's too bad, but it was Megan Patterson, and then she just dropped me, she became Patterson. But at any rate, she was telling me that one of her residents was interviewed and said, you know, I'm going to be a craniofacial, no, she's orthopedic. So I was going to be I was going to be a hand surgeon. And then I realized I didn't really want to be a hand surgeon. I just wanted to be like Dr. Patterson. And I didn't really want to be a pediatric general surgeon, but I wanted to be like those guys because they were such technicians and such great teachers. So it's a small town, Queen's University, and I was offered a job if I would train in plastic surgery and Alec would train in vascular surgery. And I really wasn't, the 2 plastic surgeons at Queen's at that time were not people that I would aspire to be. I like the burns. I love the burn part, but that was, to me, it was more general surgery and sicker patients. So we were recruited to come and be on staff at Queen's University doing plastics and Alec doing vascular. And we ended up, me doing plastic, Alec doing thoracic surgery. And we would have done the cardiac component if we could have afforded to keep training. But by that time we had 4 children and a lot of loans. So then we went from Queen's to Toronto, and for me to do plastic surgery and Alec to do thoracic surgery.
It's interesting because everybody's got a different story. And what drove you, the things that interested you, is like in neurology, which I have nothing personal, wasn't one of my most favorite subjects. But you have to have the pathways and et cetera. That just wasn't a part of my zeitgeist. I wasn't as interested in that. I was more interested in different things. But it's funny how people connect these things together, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
And isn't it great in medicine we can go all over the place?
Yeah.
And then in surgery we can go all over the place. And then in plastic surgery we can do the same thing.
I know.
And then we can reinvent ourselves if we feel like it.
That's exactly,
It's
which
lovely.
we do in plastic surgery. And that brings me to my next question.
Okay.
Is that you have seen momentous paradigm shifts in plastic surgery during your career. And just tell us a few things about it.
Well, I think the biggest thing for us as a specialty is microsurgical techniques. And in 1978, when I was coming as a general surgery resident to Toronto to do plastic surgery, Ralph Manktolo had just come back from Japan with Tamai and he did the first in North America free functional for hand. And
what year was that?
1978, 1980. So 1978. So he had just done that. It was presented at the hand meeting, I think it was in San Francisco in 1980. And you could have heard a pin drop. I was there and there was no video.
This is an amputation?
No, it was Volkmann's.
Oh, Volkmann's. Okay. Okay. So he. Okay.
Free gracilis for hand.
Okay.
And literally that was amazing. He's a quiet guy, and he presented it, and there was and then the pictures doing this, and the room went silent.
Isn't that a great historical moment? That you were there. And when I interviewed Burt Brent, when he presented his first results on ear reconstruction, I said you could hear a pin drop.
Yes.
Or when Jack Sheen did his lectures on the aesthetics of the nose.
I was going to say Burgett too. Makes you want to take your nose off and make him get a better nose from your forehead.
Yeah,
these guys.
I know.
Or cut your ear off and make a prettier ear.
Plastic surgery has evolved so quickly, and microsurgery being one, changed everything.
It changed everything.
Yeah.
And
changed the playing field.
It changed the playing field, and it's been adopted in all different directions. But when I went to Toronto, I worked very hard to get a rotation at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto because Ralph Manktolo was there. And I worked hard to get that rotation, and I got it. And it was January to July. And I arrived December 31st, and on January 1st, Ralph was moved to the Toronto General Hospital. I was devastated.
That's like you go to play football for a coach and he leaves. Nowadays they can go through the portal and go with him.
So there was another plastic surgeon there. In the afternoons he would do his private practice, so I had the afternoons off. And that's when I met Alan Hudson, who was another mentor of mine. He was chairman of the Department of Neurosurgery, and I had my afternoons, nights and weekends free. And I hung out in his ORs and his clinic for that 6 months. And then he invited me into his little laboratory. Dan Hunter was his research tech. Dan Hunter still works with me in my lab in St. Louis from 1978 to now. So that is what you were saying, like how things move around. So I was so upset that Ralph went there, but then bang, there comes this neurosurgeon. And Alan Hudson got and looked after all of the major nerve problems and the plexus problems in Canada. And he was best friends with Dave Klein, who did the same thing in the United States in New Orleans at LSU. So, and they are the Klein and Hudson book on nerve surgery. And that was the beginning of a really long, great relationship with Alan.
The fun thing about these interviews is like I interviewed Julia Tertzis, and when you started talking about that, my head went, nerve and reconstruction and everything. Again, there's not a lot of degrees of separation in plastic surgery.
No.
You can get pretty quick to somebody because of how specialized our specialty is.
Well, when you think about who operates where the nerves are, it's orthopedics and plastic surgeons. And it's not neurosurgeons. They're stuck in the brain and spinal cord, and they're still stuck in the brain and spinal cord. Yeah. So it's a very different type of neurosurgeon that actually gets into the extremity to play with those nerves.
Well, let me ask you what you feel your greatest professional accomplishment is.
Without doubt, opening up the specialty of nerve surgery, modern nerve surgery with nerve transfers, and teaching it. So not only have I been on the very ground floor of the concept of nerve transfer, don't fix the plexus injury here, where I did 20-hour operations, long nerve grafts, but come down here and move nerves around. Lower plexus, where there was nothing you could do for hand, but you can move the brachialis nerve and get hand function. And now you can do that in spinal cord injuries. I was the first to do that. Modern spinal cord injury nerve transfer to give Dr. Wachtel, who was Marty Robson's best friend from internship. We were talking about Linda Phillips earlier. Yeah. So I walk in the room and there's Marty Robson in my clinic and this gentleman in a spinal cord injury chair, and I'm thinking, I don't treat spinal cord. And Marty said, don't worry, Susan, all I want you to do is give my best friend from internship hand function. So talk about, wow, serendipity. So I did. Yeah. And then now that's done. In our group, Ida Fox does that now, and it's done around the world. So, but the other thing besides doing all that was teaching it. So Andrew Yee and I have put together a library of videos on the operations that I've made up in nerve surgery, and they are available on the web for free and are used by millions of people around the world.
Fantastic.
Yay.
Now, when you did your hand fellowship, who was it with at Hopkins?
It was Curtis. So it wasn't at Hopkins. Alec did a fellowship at Hopkins. We went to Baltimore.
Okay.
And he worked at Hopkins, but I did the fellowship at Curtis, and I was Curtis's last fellow, Raymond Curtis. He was a doll. Real gentleman.
What do you think in our specialty has been our greatest mistake?
Ooh, well, first of all, dropping the word reconstruction.
Agreed.
And so that's one. And secondly, getting a little bit lost in the glittery part of what we can do.
Agree. And
not hanging out in the meat and potatoes. And we're a small specialty, so if you want to compete with the big guns that don't have the glitter to go to in surgery, then you got to be very careful. Or everything you do, we've lost hand orthopedics, we've lost head and neck to ENT. Everybody does the flaps now. ENT's gobbling around on cleft lip, for heaven's sakes. The head and neck stuff that we began, James Barrett Brown, where I work, and Wash U and Bill Blair. So we've lost a lot of stuff because I think we got distracted by the shiny stuff, and these other specialties have moved forward with NIH-funded research. And if you want to play with the big dogs, you got to do that. That's the game. So you got to do it, and we didn't.
Yeah.
So we got distracted, and there you go.
Well, and this kind of falls in the second question, my next question, which is, I'll ask about plastic surgery, but what is your greatest professional disappointment?
Well, I've had 3 department chairs. 2 were fabulous.
That leaves 1.
It leaves 1. And I should have left 1 and not stayed so long with that 1. So that's a disappointment for me. However, I do know this for true, and I think what you've been talking to me about, really what you were saying resonated with me about this, that whatever happens to you or me or anyone at a particular time happens because it is supposed to happen. And sometimes it's painful.
Yes.
But it's supposed to happen. So regardless, this one person that wasn't an excellent chair came into my life for a long time, and it was supposed to happen because it is taking me now in a different direction.
Well, as Nietzsche once said, that doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
It's for a reason. So now I get it. I'm over that now. I'm out the other side of that.
Yeah.
And I'm over that, and I really am grateful for that.
Yeah, but you came out of a better person. There
yes,
you go.
yes, and in a different, and really on a different plane.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're here, and then it's like you
tough
woke
when
up.
you're in the middle of it to realize that.
No, it's terrible in the middle of, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you wake up and you think, whoa, now that I'm through, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has been your greatest joy?
My children, my husband, my family.
Okay.
And let me say that again. Yeah, you know, they say, well, a surgical family or a surgical department of surgery family. It's no family unless it's very dysfunctional. You want to talk about that. But it comes down to who loves you and who you love.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really important things.
Yes.
Sometimes we lose our perspective.
Yeah.
Who do you admire most, either personally or professionally? And we may have already touched on that.
Well,
Sometimes
my husband, I have to say that.
Yeah.
You know, I have to. We're very different, but I admire him so much. We went through COVID together. That was an interesting experience. And no kids at home. And I am so grateful I got to go through that experience with him. Just the more I know him, the more remarkable I see. And, you know, I have really woken up as a person in this last while. And I realize he's been awake all along. He's quiet. He notices things. He thinks he doesn't meditate, but he meditates all the time on nature. And we drove up today from St. Louis to Chicago, and driving along, I said, look at that field. Did you notice that? Or look at this. Did you notice that? So he's just a wise person. Caitlin, our youngest daughter, is the same as he is, as far as old person, sort of, old soul.
Well, cool. What would you give as words of wisdom to present or future plastic surgeons?
Well, you know, I talked about the mantra my dad gave me when I was a teenager, non carborundum illegitimus. So this is what I would say. I have some other mantras. And around this time of this transition I was talking about, I sat and came up with these 5 words, sort of like Rumi's definition of beauty. You can't add anything to it and you can't take anything away from it. That's what it is. So the 5 words was forward, fearlessly, courage, curiosity, trust. So that was 2018. So I needed to go forward, fearlessly, with curiosity, courage, and trust. I have no idea where that all came from. So I have a board, and I have a friend who's an artist, Greg Kelly, and whenever I come up with the mantra that really resonates with me and that I need to hold on to, he draws it for me and puts it on a little board.
Wow.
So it is a board. And then actually that was 2018. 2008, when my sister had cancer, I came up with this one: do the best you can, let the rest be done for you. That is something that I would say to a lot of us, that we're so achieving that we're good at doing the best you can, and we're not good at let the rest be done for you. In fact, as a resident, if you do that, you will be fired if you have your other residents do things. But that's a real trick. Let the rest be done for you. And then this last one is it's along the line of 4 locks, 4 keys. 4 types of people you meet in your path. 4 types of people. Happy people, you stay the locks and keys going down your river.
Locks and paths, okay.
Yeah, so the keys to the locks as you go down the river of your life pattern. Happy people, you spend time with them. Sad people, you show them compassion, but they have their own path to go. Don't spend that much time. Wise gurus, you spend time with them. And then the evilly people, the mean people, you detach from them, physically if possible, otherwise as best you can. So those are the 4 locks, 4 keys. So find joy and do good, reject mean. I have that on a board as well. But then the biggest thing is I have just finished a couple of years of coaching training on energy levels, and the low level, it's IPEC, Bruce Schneider's, it's his deal, and it is seen in all spiritual endeavors, but he's distilled it into these 7 levels. I lose, I win, you lose. That's catabolic negative energy. That's fight, flight, or freeze. That is okay, but not sustainable. That is burnout. The next is I win and you win too, but I win first, and it is sort of a deep breath. It's coping. It is what it is. It's not these blame, shame, anger, fear, anxiety. The fourth is what we do every day, and that is you win. Compassion for our patients. We're here today for Mr. So-and-so to do this operation. So compassion for others is 4. Now the energy starts to go up, positive energy. And the cortisol and the adrenaline changes into dopamine and oxytocin and endorphins.
There's your neurological background.
Right? So the level 4 is compassion for others. Level 5 is win-win. That is peace and calm. So the thought drives an emotion, drives an action. So I feel that you're attacking me, and then I am going to withdraw. If it is 5, it's win-win, it's peace and calm, and then it's no judgment, no attachment to outcome, no failure, just opportunities everywhere. And that's one of the reasons I create things, is because level 6 is connection, and that's oxytocin. That is what we're doing now. We're connecting, and I'm seeing in you what you see in me, and we're almost finishing sentences for each other with similar kinds of experiences. And that is joy and happiness. So connecting with other people is joy and happiness. And then level 7 is in the flow, and that's the endorphins. And that's when you're fully attached to your mission. We go into this to level 4 people, give them compassion and serve them and help them. And we are aligned with helping other people. That's our mission. When you see all this burnout, that's because we've gone to the I win, you lose, the negative. And so that is what I'm teaching now. And it only came because I spent 2 years in level 1. I was level 2'd like that. And I went down, and I stayed down. I went to see my daughter two months after this happened to me, and it was in August of 2020. And she said, "Mom, you've lost your joy. What's wrong?" And I was trying to fake it so well, but she said, "I'd lost my level 7, and I didn't have any happiness and joy. I was feeling so sad." So that's what I am going to, that's my next mission, is doing that, is bringing that message forward. I have a talk at the American College of Surgeons this October, and it's called Phoenix Rising, Paradigm Shift in the Culture of Surgery. And you know what? The low levels, attachment outcome, high judgment, high stress, no performance. When you get up there, it's when we're doing what we came in to do, it's high performance, it's no stress, it's no judgment, we're just in the flow. And the performance is high. So if we could get surgery to come down off this silly hierarchy we have of almost bullying and pimping, then we could find our joy, and then we'd be inventing things at level 6, and we would have our joy. It'd be wonderful.
Your mind never stops, does it?
No, I love it.
That's great. No,
I love it.
I've noticed that in people that I've interviewed, because of the name of the project, is that their minds are constantly going.
I'm just so excited about this.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm blessed.
What predictions do you have for plastic surgery in the next quarter century?
Well, a lot has changed. We talked about microsurgery, but I think the big thing that has really changed rapidly is this that we've talked about. There's too much burnout now.
Okay.
And we need universal health care, because we can't afford to spend almost 20% on health care, where it's going to this repetitious business about the business of. We need to stay attached to that. And we need universal health care. You know, in Canada, this is how it works. You do an operation, you dictate your op note, you push a button, that's your bill. And somebody at the government looks at it and sends you in your bank account, or if you're in a group or whatever, the dollars go in right away. There's no coding and all this worrying and arguing and that. Every first world country except the United States has universal health care. And it's not so that you look at your copay, and your copay is half of what the insurance company. So you're half an insurance company. It's ridiculous. So we will come to that. There will be universal health care in the United States in 25 years.
And I would say this, you're preaching to the choir.
Okay, good. But also now we have the electronic record, and we have the data banks, and we have all big data. So, but the really exciting things are going on in people's laboratories and they don't even know what it's going to be, but it's going on in the research labs now. The peer review, the thing about, it'd be great to have people just give us money, but when you work really hard to get an NIH peer-reviewed grant, you're learning all the time. You are so jazzed on this, and you're getting heavy criticism from people that know-ish that topic. So when you go into do nerve allotransplantation, that's what my lab has looked at. I wanted to do long nerve grafts like they were, and doing transplants from cadavers. Well, you don't do that, but it took right to nerve transfers. No idea that that's where it was going to go, and it was all out of failure on this that ended up with that. So there's going to be those kinds of big changes, but I think that we're really hurting ourselves, not as a specialty like what we talked about before. We need to get back on track with science and the funding and serious, and we need to be, and I also think we're not going to have these silly silos of departments. I think it's going to be more horizontal. So like me, I'm a plastic surgeon, but I love nerves in the extremity, and there's all other things. Like, I think it's going to be horizontal and not these silos with one person at the top who's there for too long dictating what's going on. So I think there's going to be some big changes. You have to go really rock bottom before you go up. So I think this COVID has been a really important lesson for all of us.
Well, that was last year when I did the interview, and we don't have to get in now how it affected your life. Well, you said your husband
fell in love with him again.
Yeah, there you go. So there was something positive. But it was different. What can I say? Yeah. Fortunately, I was retired and I had pickleball and other things to do to keep busy and have an art studio. Oh, don't even. I know. There's a lot of injuries with that. Yeah. But it made me develop a little bit differently, and I had built an art studio at the house, because it was just one of these things that I wanted to do. I thought when I retire, and I thought, well, why not do it now? Yeah. So, that's my life, but this is more about you. So are there any other things you want to highlight as the last question? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I just, this has been a tremendous joy for me, being a surgeon. And it's interesting that the things that I thought I wanted and worked really hard for and didn't necessarily get, but other things just landed for me. I had no aspirations to be president of the association. I never imagined that would happen. There had never been a woman surgeon president, and I felt very comfortable. I'm very, very comfortable with plastic surgeons. I moved out, though, because of the hand experience, to get into the orthopedic group. I can't believe I have 2 orthopedic children, darlings, but they don't really want plastic surgery in hand, and that was very hard. But the easiest part of my whole life is just being really comfortable with the plastic surgical family that has made my professional life so wonderful and exciting.
Well, this has been a fantastic interview.
Thank you, David. That was great.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Great.
I told you it would go easy.
I want to interview you.
Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this interview. All of my interviews are available online at meeting.aaps1921.org. I'll repeat that. meeting.aaps1921.org. And thank you.